Got it. So you're in the right place about, I'm sorry. I if you unmute yourself, and can you say your name? Your last name is Lee, but I don't want to butcher your first name.
My first name is Hyunjong.
Hi.
Hi.
So you're in the right
Sorry.
place, and I'm not even gonna try. But thank you so much for coming. So you're in the right place. We're definitely gonna talk about what's available for local units and the PTA consoles through the national PTA, and also what the districts have available for you. So basically, the first thing is what we've identified so far. You are looking for improving the infrastructure, right? For instance. So in April, just this month, earlier this month, they have released more funds to schools, and they're going to go straight to districts. And these are monies that are sent to school districts, which means your school boards are going to be managing it. And that is very bureaucratic. It's very difficult to get in the mix. And it's not something that your PTA could literally take the money from, but it's something as an advocate, you should really be tuned in. You should check out what's going on with your board meetings, just kind of check the notes from when they meet up, because what's happening now is that this huge influx of money is like it never happened before. And I don't know when it's going to happen again. So now is the time to kind of be tuned in. And if they do ask for your input, definitely participate in that. So it's not necessarily that your board of your local unit could actually get any of that, but as a parent in the community, you have a voice, and I highly recommend that you use it. And the best way to use it is to go into the board meetings, or at least follow up with following on the meeting notes or things like that that they have available. They usually have reports as well. So there is another set of money that was released last year, and it's also unprecedented amount of money that was sent to districts, and it's $12 billion. And they spend most of that money on 3 focus areas for them, for most school districts. It's academic recovery. That's because there's been many reports that there's quite a few inequities in terms of access to the internet, and people weren't able to attend effectively the school. A lot of kids were absent. So they're working with summer programs, after school programs. And I will talk about that a little bit more in detail, what's happening in Illinois for that. And then they're improving staffing. They're doing also staffing for the SEL, so emotional care, mental health. And then they're also trying to get more teachers. And they're also investing into advancing principals, getting more administrators. So there's lots of new programs with that. And finally, the facilities and operations, which is the biggest problem for so many schools. My daughter was in like 7th grade, and they had a fire drill because something in cafeteria, somebody tried to use a microwave, and then it set off a fire. So obviously our schools are not in great conditions. So the fact that they're finally looking into it and they're fixing the facilities, which means you might not have to worry about advocating for that. Again, your first step, if you are interested in doing any kind of improvements for your school, before you take on any action, first go back to any minutes that your school board has had and find out what their plan of action is. How are they spending that money? Because they were required by the state to submit a detailed file, and I will talk about that later, which outlines exactly how they're going to spend that money. So each district actually had to go and explain how are they going to do that. So that's actually that. This is the point I was going to make. So the money went to the districts, and the districts expect the money went to the state board, Illinois School of Education. And the districts, if they want that money, they had to give them a detailed document. And so I will drop in the chat, and also have in the notes later, the link where to go to, where it will have the complete file for your board. You could find your school board, and find out what they're spending their money on. Now, the one thing that is in Illinois, there's a whole block that is designated to help districts build community school partnerships through grants to get services to students, where continued engagement with the school during so the point about that is that you, this is where you fit in. So you could go find out what grants your school district is planning for, to connect with, to partner with organizations like PTA. So I be putting in, this is, okay. I'll send that as a follow-up. I'll send you the link to the site. Well, we could go through it in more detail. I apologize. I saw that there was some comments in the chat. Just wanted to follow up. Hi, Patty. Welcome. And then Rafia from Naperville. We're interested in hearing more about the grants for STEM related programs. Okay, so before we jump into the National PTA, I wanted to see if that like crazy rant made any sense. If you guys have any follow-up questions, or if you have any experience with, have you heard from your school boards about any potential partnerships that are happening in your area? No.
I can tell you what happened in 54 where we are. As you probably know, they don't have to ask for your input. They have to
Yeah.
tell you what they're going to do with that money.
Yes.
And they asked for the input, and specifically PTA was the people that got the seat at the table, you know, so it's another gold star for being PTA.
So how did they make that available to you? How did they tell you about that information? How was that released?
We have probably just word of mouth. We have a really good council here in Schaumburg where all 28 schools have a PTA, and all 28 of those schools are tied directly to the local council, PTA council here. So I think the superintendent went directly to the president of that PTA council and asked for her input, or asked her to sit in on one of the meetings.
Okay. And is anyone else in a district where the superintendent is a big advocate for the PTA? Then?
Yeah,
You guys aren't
absolutely.
in this, yeah? Okay.
Yes, no, we're not in the same district. My district is in Addison, and our council, pretty much any decisions that are going to be coming out, it's not, again, not so much input or anything like that, but he will take what we say to advisement. But essentially, right before he addresses the school board, he'll let our council know, hey, this is what I'm kind of bringing up, things like that. And so we'll get sometimes a firsthand knowledge right before the school board does, and then find out all the details at the board meeting.
So I'm gonna go to the next part, and this is Rafia. If I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name right, but we're gonna talk about the National PTA grants. And these are, like I said earlier, are your best easy access to programming that is already organized. It's usually sponsored by a corporate sponsor or by National PTA. And the idea is they come up with programs, and then they have people apply for the grants to run those programs. But if you don't get the grant money and you like the program, which all the details are available on their National PTA website, then you could get both the money and the program to run. So to apply for National PTA grants, that happens twice a year. They release a batch of grants. And again, they are aligned with the programs that are pre-designed. There is 2 STEM programs. One STEM program is not as good as the other. So if you are lucky enough to be close by the area that is the 50 radius, the South Illinois, and if you are able to apply for the Bayer grant, I highly recommend that, because I just received the feedback from a principal. They had the actual event in school, and they say that the experiments are unique, they're very engaging, and they're one of a kind. On the other side, the other STEM festival that they have is nowhere up to par with that. It's kind of more watered down, a lot of stuff that you might have already have done at home, or your kids have done in the previous like elementary school levels. So it's not as exciting. But the National PTA the reason why it's so good, the grants, basically you don't have to have a ton of prerequisites. I've dropped in a link information about how to apply for some of the grants that the state will have if you partner with a district and all of that stuff. And those kind of grants require detailed reporting. They also require detailed proposals. There is really tight timelines. It really is like next level. So if your school has not done grants, and if it wants to kind of start somewhere, national PTA grants are your best entry point, because all you have to do is be a PTA member. You need to make sure that whatever grant you're applying for kind of lines up with your needs. And then the only other rule is that if you've already had your STEM night, you've already paid, you got the grant for it, you can't go next year and apply for it again. But then there's like 7 other grants you could apply for, and you could even apply to multiple grants in the same period. The only caveat is when you get the money for the grant, you actually have to execute the program. And so it's not just getting the money and then using it for whatever purpose. It has to be used for that program. So any local unit could work, like I mentioned earlier, they could participate in any of the programs. So there is a mental health program, there is a reading night, there's a magnesium, there is a STEM. I don't want to go through them right now because you would benefit much more. I'm dropping the link to the website where things are listed. There's extensive amount of information. It goes as so much depth. So where it has like calendar recommending and how to communicate the event out. So it's like the communication templates and the templates for promotion and the timeline schedules, everything is really thought out really well. So these are also fantastic programs for anybody who is a new board and you guys kind of need to fill your calendar and you're looking at opportunities. Again, you're busy with so many things, and this is a perfect way for you to have the school engagement, but then it takes away all of that like time and effort of putting together all the things that go with putting together a program. Oh, thank you. I will send another one in a sec. And so I'll send that in later, so I'm not wasting anybody's time right now. So this year, like I said, we had quite a few PTAs participate. We were gonna have somebody come in and speak to us about their experience with diversity, equity, inclusion. We had 4 schools that were able to participate in it. It's a pilot program. It is the first year they've done it. They've done it with a small group of PTAs, but even so, we had 4 that qualified. So the information went out that this grant is open. The people had gone in on the website. The application process is really, really straightforward. We did have another Let's Talk Thursday where we actually go into detail of explaining how to do it. And we also have the links to the actual, like how to answer the questions. The good news, what they've done is as long as you have the account for the national PTA, which I highly recommend for you to have if you're a board leader, if you get yourself an account for the PTA, you're able to just log in, put in your name of your school, and then it pulls in all the demographic information because that's part of the application. So you don't actually have to go to the school board, find out all the details, you get that prefabricated. So all you're doing when you're applying for a national PTA is you're making sure that you're answering the 4 questions. And those 4 questions usually are, why are you doing this? How do you plan to spend the money? What's your community like? And you just kind of have to know whether the program is a good fit for you. And then you're able to tell the story. And it's a very straightforward process. And it's usually opens in September, closes in October, then it opens again. There's another batch that opens in I believe November we had them, and then they closed at the beginning of January. And so that's the 2 windows for application process for national PTA grants. We will communicate that out again through the weekend update. If you're not signed up, make sure you're included in that too. so we communicate as the grants become available for application, we will let you know. And then we will have another night where we're actually going to go through the process. Let me, I will put those in. So it's usually, so September to October is the first batch. And then November to January is the second one. And then I'll email you with the exact ones that were this year. I don't recall in fine detail. So we also had the STEM. We had 2 PTAs participate in the STEM science. And this is the one that if you are 50 miles from St. Louis in the Southern Illinois, if there's is there anyone on the call by any chance that is anywhere there? You would tremendously benefit. It's definitely coming back next year. It's a really, really good program. I have not heard yet from the reading experience group team. They've won. And this is also one of those programs that we haven't heard from before. So I don't have a lot of information regarding it. But the Healthy Minds is a school. I talked to them. They are basically doing a bunch of initiatives throughout the year, and they're having an event. So the way these programs work, they could be one night event, or they could be just different like initiatives that are spread out throughout the year. And obviously people had to get real creative during the last 2 years. And then we had the math night. Well, we had the kindness, which is the TikTok grant, and we had Urbana also win We Can Do This campaign grant recipient. They are helping to get the community, they're helping with the vaccination, the COVID vaccination in their area to promote that. And then there was a STEM family and math night, and that's sponsored by Mathnasium. And that one also gets really, really good reviews. So Rafia, if you're looking for a STEM program that is not limited by geographical area, I would highly recommend applying for this program. And I will drop in the link information about the programs. I'll send that. Oh, Jim did. So if you follow that link, it will go, and if any of these programs that I've just mentioned made kind of sparked your interest, this would be a good place to look for them. So this is all I had for the programs and grants. So to recap, the National PTA grants is what I'm really, really advocating for our local PTA leaders, because it's a low entry process. They're usually programs that are focused on a specific purpose, and you have a support system behind you of units that have already done it. So you could reach out to people who have done it before, and B, you have the professional staff of National PTA helping you, and C, you get the funding. The way these programs work best is if you could get a buy-in from a principal. And when I spoke to the volunteers versus principals, basically the reason why having principal on board is better than trying to just be an after-school activity. If you are able to do any of these programs during a school day, it makes it available to more kids in your community. So that is one of the things to consider. So if you are applying for National PTA grant, things to consider is if your unit is in good standing, if your unit has a gap in the calendar, which I know a lot of schools don't. I know a lot of schools have a lot of their standing traditions, and the new program just doesn't make any sense. But I would highly recommend reconsidering, maybe changing something to fit a program in like this. And then also, if your school would benefit from having the funding come in to run the program. So what this does, it eliminates the need to fundraise. So if your entire calendar is subject, like Angelica mentioned earlier, that there are programs that they want to make sure that the kids get to participate. This is an ideal solution. And it's a simple application process, and you're almost guaranteed to get it. So let's see. This, so the new link doesn't work either, right? So I'll share my screen. We'll just go to the, I'm done with this presentation. So I will go ahead and get us onto the National PTA website, and then I'll go through.
It did take a minute to load, Alyssa, so it
Oh.
might be their site.
Oh, okay. So maybe not there then. Let's, I wanted to also show you the, since we have some time left, and this is a really, really useful bit of information, because at least 3 of you mentioned that you're interested in learning about the money, the process for applying for the grants that are next level, not just the grants that are National PTA. Again, I will repeat myself. National PTA is the way to go for immediate, easy fix if you're looking for programmatic issues. But if you are looking for something more next level, this is where you want to be. This is the link that I've put in the chat. So this, you guys see this site? This is Illinois State Board of Educators. And right now there are funding opportunities and the request for proposal. On here, you will see the due date. And so a lot of things are coming due. But specifically, you will find that there is one that I found that was interesting is the after school programs, that there are several districts that are doing it, that they're partnering up with another. So it has to be a PTA plus something else. They come together and they apply, and then they get the funding to execute a program. So for whatever, like Rebecca, if you're looking for something, I would start here and see if there is a good fit for you for any of the programs. Same thing for Dan. If your guys are looking for something more advanced, but again, the problem with many of these, there's going to be, I don't know when they're going to have more released. And I know that just getting it, the reporting alone for these kind of grants is very burdensome. Like it might be a lot more than most of the volunteers in the PTA level are willing to take on. But nonetheless, I do think this is the good time to consider looking into this stuff, because I don't know when the money is going to be like this again. Just it's still there, it's not all spent, and they're looking for. So this is the article that I found incredibly helpful, because they do break things up and explain it in a really, really, really great way, exactly how the $120 billion are being spent in school districts. And then another link that was in the chat, I wanted to say this. This is the one that I mentioned when. So this is the ESSER plan. So this is what our Illinois is spending, how they're spending the ESSER money. So you'll find a lot of detail in terms of what they're looking for and how it's going to, like what the standards are. So this document, coupled with any notes from your board, you'll be able to get a pretty good understanding of where your school districts are headed in terms of what are they fixing up, what is still left behind, and what you could advocate for. And everything is in motion right now. A lot of the proposals are still being considered. So this is a really, really good time to come in and use your voice to advocate for whatever need you have. So with that being said, I'm going to stop sharing, and I would like to answer any questions. So Rebecca, is there any reporting needed for PTA grants? Yes. So each program comes with a detail list, and usually it's in May, all the reports that are, it's usually a simple report, but it's due in May. So no matter at what time you get your grant money, which is usually, again, the first quarter of the school year, usually is the application process. The second quarter of the year, the funds are released. The third and the fourth quarter is when they would have either events take place and reports come out, but May is when everything kind of wraps up. And the reports are really just a way for them to figure out if the program is working and if it's doing what it needs to be doing, or if it needs to be a change. They're very flexible, they're very mindful, and they're very much focused on making sure that these programs serve the communities in the way they were designed to do. And if they're not working, they make sure that they kind of adjust that. So that's the reason why you do reporting. So it's not the same kind of reporting when you're sending out reporting for tax money, right? The tax money that's been spent, it's held to a much higher standard. There's much more complicated stuff that goes on in that reporting. So you have to be careful with the 270 grants listed on the National PTA. That's what I advertised last year. What I did find out, they aren't as many. There's maybe 10 programs that are happening, plus weird pilot programs that you might get kind of looped in. But it's generally the STEM, the reading, the Healthy Minds, the TikTok, Connect one, and several of the ones that hopefully are going to make it next year. So like diversity and the kindness, all of that stuff, I really hope kind of carries on. And so I'm looking through the chat, but if you guys, you could unmute yourself and let me know if there's anything else, like while we have some time together. We really appreciate you tuning in tonight. That's a tremendous turnout actually for us. So I'm really, really grateful. So if there's anything that you would like to know that I haven't covered, I would love to try to answer.
How often are the grants re-given each year? I'm guessing not every school gets the same grant again.
So you cannot get the same grant, but you could apply for a different grant each year. So it only happens, so that's the no double dipping rule. So if you've done your STEM festival once, you can't do the same STEM festival again the following year. I don't know if there's a lapse of like 5 years and then they could do it again, but you could do the program. It's just that you might not get the funding. So, but if the program is hugely successful, you could still do the program. That's available to anyone, but the funding might not be available next year for the exact same thing. Should I start calling on people?
I actually have a question when it comes to, let's say you do get approved for the grant. Is that money to be used for that year, or is it something that can be carried over to next year?
Usually within the rules of each grant, they'll spell it out. More than likely, it has to be used within that year because that's part of the application process. You say what you're going to use it for. And so usually you explain why this is a good thing for your community to get done that year. And that's why the funding happens in the first half of the year to allow you the rest of the year to make it happen. And again, because these are kind of program linked, a lot of the very, very time consuming stuff, like figuring out the supplies, figuring out the flow, all of that is already done for you ahead of time. And they're kind of vetted. These programs all go through the pilot programs. So they're very well organized. So once you have the money, it's a matter of getting kind of everybody assignments, and then it kind of unfolds. So to answer your questions, most of the time, it does have to be used in the year that the money was given for the program, and it has to be used for that specific program.
Okay, thank you. I'm new to all of this, so definitely want to learn
Excellent.
and how to do this stuff correctly. So thank you.
So we'll also have another one once the actual grants open up in October. Last year we had a couple of those nights too. And they have them too. The National PTA has a night. We have a night where we actually go through step by step how to log into your account, how to open up the application, how to find the program, how to put in the information. And then this is just more or less a promotion for it. Like I really hope to get some people pumped up about it. So hopefully next year we have several people go through the process. It's not a painful process. It's the good news is it's really straightforward, but it's hugely beneficial to the communities that participate. Ashley, do you have any questions?
I do, but it's actually for Dan, if he's okay answering a question. We did the workshop on Tuesday about I think we mentioned fundraising, and you mentioned something about a trivia night. So I am in the process of getting that started. I found a venue and I found an entertainment company and picked a date. I just was hoping I could at some point maybe pick your brain at what you did to make it successful and some tips and advice on making sure we can make some money and some new board members. If that could be done now, or if we can set up a call to do that another time, whatever is good for anyone.
Put my email address in the contact and just email me and we can set up some time to talk offline.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Meg has her hand up. You have yellow walls and a yellow hand. It was very difficult to see.
I'm working in a closet tonight. It's just a long story. Anyway, one thing that I would suggest to the local units, most schools have a school improvement plan. That would be something that they could get their hands on prior to the grants being released so that they are familiar with it, and then that they could look at their school improvement plan and see what needs the district has that might match up with the grants prior to them being released next year. The more familiar they become with what their needs are, the better they're going to know if the grants are going to match or not. And they can start doing some background about what kinds of things that they would be looking for.
And where do you get that from? Who do you
I would ask your superintendent or your principal if there's one available. A lot of school districts have parent reps on those, some don't. Dan, is that something that your region is familiar with?
So at least speaking of my school district, they are on our website. And at least how my school district has it, that's a document that they have available. So they have their 5-year plan, they have their most recent updates to that plan. And obviously any capital development projects would go up on there as well. So moving forward with any planned capital development projects would be also on the district website. So check your district websites and if not, contact your district office and find out where those documents are. As parents and taxpayers, you have access to that information. So yeah.
And you might want to tell them exactly what your intent is. National PTA gives away money. We're trying to get money for the district. If we could have a copy of this, it would help us in our planning for next year. And then ask them once these grants come out, could we please come in and talk with you about it? They might have some suggestions.
No,
Working in partnership.
Most of the grants that come out of National PTA, just to give you a heads up, those aren't improvement for the building or the school grounds. It's usually programmatic stuff for community engagement. So it's focused. So maybe exactly to Peggy's point, have that conversation with your leadership, talk to your principal, talk to your teachers and see what they're missing. So the feedback I got from one of the teachers about the science fair, she said, it was an awesome day to have kids have fun and not have to prepare lesson plan for that day. So that's maybe how you sell it to the teachers is we want to enhance the science curriculum in our school. We know it's a lot of burden on you to create that science curriculum. Here's a science curriculum for you for a day. All it takes is just you have to buy in, the principal has to let you have a bunch of teachers participate in it during school day, and boom, you have excellent partnerships and your kids have exposure to a different curriculum that otherwise would have not been available to them.
And Alyssa, I have another question because my memory isn't what it should be. Once they get these grants, doesn't National host phone calls with the grant recipients to give them some input and some guidance as the year goes on?
Exactly. That's when I mentioned when you have your peer and your professional support, that's exactly what happens. The National PTA does not like to hang. They give you a lot of information up front, and then they carry you through the process. So that is actually a unique experience in PTA world where things aren't kind of dropped. They're very professional at the national level. You actually get the truly awesome user experience, if like to use the right term, maybe. But they provide you a really good support system. So you do kind of, and you're not doing it alone. There's like other schools. This is a national initiative, right? So you're doing this with schools from all over the states, and also schools from different parts of our state, which is very different in different parts. So it's also a great experience just to get to know volunteers from other areas. So Dan, you have your hand up and you don't have yellow walls, so I could see you.
If you're looking for grants like on the ISB website or other big grant dollar item type grants, a good resource would be your district grant writer, or like in my case, it would be the superintendent of innovation or whatever it is. So that person is the one who, her job is strictly grant writing, finding funds, figuring out how to spend the money once it comes in. So she, I approached her and said, if I were to want to write a grant for something, will you review it? And she absolutely said yes. So getting that relationship or that conversation up front ahead of time, especially if you're going to go to the district and say, hey, I want to buy a playground or park to kind of not come out of the capital, funds or capital improvement for that one school building, and then they can take that money and use it in the building or somewhere else. That might be a good resource to kind of look into as well.
Ashley?
How do you put that little hand up, first of all, so I'm not,
It's one of the faces, like when you go to the face reactions at the bottom, it's the raise hand is one of the options.
Oh, okay.
And then you could also do
You
this,
mentioned
which is
district grant writer. I'm brand new to the PTA. We have a brand new PTA in our district and for our school. I'm just wondering, how do you go about finding your district grant writer?
Excellent question. I was gonna say the same thing.
Contact your district office. Like for me, the way I found out what she actually did was she was the one who presented the Title I presentation for us. So she explained what her duty was, how she gets the funds, how she then has to look at, they're going to spend the money, and obviously each grant has its guidelines on how you can spend it, where you can spend it, things like that. So now, the problem is not so much when you get the money, getting the money, but what you're going to do once you get the money if you can't spend it on the program to what you're doing, right? So that's the issue, and she explained all that kind of stuff. So contact your district and say, hey, do you have a grant writer? Start, with your principal. Hey, who writes the grants for the school? There might be someone in-house, one of the teachers or APs inside your building that might be the subject matter expert in grant writing, who can kind of point you in that direction. So yeah, it's just starting a conversation with somebody in administration and saying, point me in the right direction to see who can help me, formulate a sentence other than ain't and got. So.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
So I just wanted to quickly follow up with Angelica, Patty, and Miss Lee. I apologize. I'm not even going to butcher your name. Are there any questions we haven't answered? We could answer in the last 5 minutes.
I don't have any questions.
No
Me
questions?
neither.
Any useful information? Anything you could? Did we answer the questions you originally had? Was this of any help?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
I have one more question.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
I see that you're recording the video. My toddler was very noisy for the first half, so I missed most of it. Where can I go and find this after?
So this should be posted on our YouTube channel. Is that where we're going to keep them? That's where we are at, right? All the other previous ones?
Ashton, some of them are on the YouTube channel, the older ones, and some of the more current relevant ones she puts on the website in the Run Your PTA section. I think it's underneath events, and it'll be it'll be a few days before she gets it up there because she edits the end and the the beginning a little bit.
So I'm gonna, I'll be responsible for it. I'll make sure I'll send you, like, let you know when it's posted, but also you did not miss a lot. In the beginning, I was rambling because I was trying to get a lot of information in. But I'm also gonna send to you guys who've attended, I could send you the previous recording of the national, the actual detail application process. And then I will also follow up with, I think Rebecca, you were asking what the windows are for the applications. I will get that answer to you right away too, to give you the timeline of how things flow. So I hope this was useful, and I really, really appreciate you guys tuning in an evening and spending this time with us. Oh, there are messages. Oh, everybody just sharing info?
That link is Illinois PTA's Building Your Toolbox. That's some of our past events that have been recorded. And give me a sec, I'll put the YouTube channel in there too.
Baggy has her hand up, and I actually see it because I don't see her. Baggy, go ahead.
Oh my God,
You were on mute. Now you're on mute.
Alyssa, could you share your email in case they have any other questions after tonight that, oh, I wish I would have asked.
Yes, please email me directly and I'll get you the more detailed questions. I am more than happy to hear from all of you. So I'm gonna